All right, the moment I know you've all been waiting for. We're going to dive deep into what's new in XSIAM 2.0, some of the new features and capabilities, and we'll give you a couple of demos. And joining me here for this section is Parker Crook, our Director of Technical Marketing. Parker, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Glad to be here.
All right, so there's dozens of new features that we've introduced in XSIAM. We're going to preview some of the biggest ones here in this section. We're going to start with the XSIAM Command Center. This really transforms the way security teams like yours visualize your security operations. You'll get a comprehensive view of your SOC operations end to end. You'll see the data sources, the volume of data coming in, the health of those data sources, all in a simple glance, and you'll be able to see your key security outcomes and metrics from this dashboard. And Parker, I think this demonstrates much better than I could talk about it, so why don't you show us what this looks like in XSIAM?
Happy to. Matt, I'm a big data visualization guy back from my network security days, so I'm really excited to be able to showcase this. We wanted to build a view that could end-to-end visualize engineering through operations at a high level. As you can see, there's a lot of data to unpack here on the screen. As you dive in, you'll see that it's more helpful than a pew-pew map, as we used to call it. As you can see, we've got an unhealthy data source on the screen here for engineering to look at. And I just want to say real quick, we do have ingestion health, which I'm not going to go into just now, but you can dive into whether alerts are out of normal profiles or there's a major issue with the source. Say, for example, an API key or an API version changed, and we just can't talk to that data source. Moving to the right, you can actually visualize just how much work we're doing in XSIAM with our incident engine and our stitching, bringing alerts from various sources together to build a single contextualized incident out of all the related alerts, so you don't have to hunt or go looking for the scope of an incident. The platform does all of that for you. Once we have those incidents, you can see the severity as we move over. You see critical, high, medium, and low. But more importantly, you can quickly see overall the difference between what's automated versus what's manual work in your SOC. And as you introduce more automation into your SOC, you'll see this flow change over time. And of note here is that you can also see how automation can close out incidents or can take the ball and run with it and hand it off to an analyst. So as you can see, this is a great view across the flow of your SOC, giving a view across your data that's useful for diving in and understanding where you can start optimizing automation, but also making sure your surface coverage doesn't have gaps in it and it's healthy. Hopefully that was exciting to dive into.
Absolutely, yeah. It's amazing how much information we've been able to pack into one dashboard, but still made it look very elegant, very easy to consume. Absolutely love it. Thanks, Parker. Let's now move to what we call your Bring Your Own ML capability. This is a new feature within XSIAM that leverages Jupyter Notebooks, which is a tool that you might be using to write and share code at the moment. Now, let me be clear with this. Out of the box, XSIAM comes with more than 1,000 AI and ML models. So it's shipped to you, well, it's a SaaS service, so it's available to you with a lot of great AI out of the box. But now with the Bring Your Own ML, we've opened that up. We've opened up access to the XSIAM data lake. So if you have data scientists or a SOC where you want to do some specific or unique use cases just for your environment, you can do that now in XSIAM through this Jupyter Notebooks integration. So Parker, do you want to show us what this looks like and take us through a demo?
Love to, Matt. Let's dive in. Jupyter Apps is an interface for code, notes, and data in a flexible interface that we've integrated into XSIAM. And here we can access data easily using our SDK or with a native BigQuery plugin inside of Python. You can also store data in BigQuery to keep your data persistent. And you can also interact with incidents and alerts using the SDK. More importantly, you can bring any module, code, or piece of logic into our platform and can run your own machine learning without having to ship data to your own platform. To help showcase this, I want to walk you through an example threat hunt looking at suspicious PowerShell activity. So let's take a look. Here, as you can see, I'm installing some dependencies. I'm not going to bore everybody with a lot of the code here. But as you can see, I've got some helper functions. How am I actually going to query the data? using XQL. There's some things that we're going to do, extracting command lines for my PowerShell hunt. Over here, we're actually going to extract and do vector analysis, and then how we're going to plot. Here we actually get to, this is the XQL we're doing for our hunt. So as a threat hunter, this is very near and dear to me. Looking for suspicious PowerShell, one thing I can do with machine learning models that I couldn't do before is be able to look at a broad hypothesis and then look for and group data together and look for anomalies. So one of the things I'm going to do is deduplicate the data. And then as you can see, I'm doing a cluster analysis and looking here. Now, this is my first cluster analysis after text to vector. And then we're going to go ahead and cluster and color code that. And this is allowing me as an analyst being able to dive in here, and I can see a couple of clusters. Looking at one of them, here I see a lot of events that are very similar. So this is very interesting because they're similar in their activity. Moving down, as we move forward with our hypothesis and we iterate on this, moving forward, as you can see, we've got a lot of results here. The first thing we're going to do is toss out anything that already has an alert. I don't want to waste my threat hunter's time on anything where we already have a workflow and an analyst looking at something. So we're going to toss out all of that data and eventually get to a set of data that's left over for information that we didn't know about that came back on our hypothesis. So this is traditional threat hunt to detection engineering. And this is kind of my favorite part of this, is at the end of this, even when I'm doing bespoke machine learning inside of XSIAM, I can create an alert for the information that we're able to threat hunt with this functionality. So here we're going to call back on the SDK, and with that data that we just pulled back, we're going to start creating alerts so that the same workflow that our analysts are looking at for the alerts and insights for everything else, we can just feed back into that natural workflow. So end-to-end, very elegant integration for shops that are looking to bring their own or do their own machine learning. What do you think, Matt?
It's pretty cool. Clearly very, very powerful. Again, I just want to reiterate that the vast majority of our customers will use the out-of-the-box AI and ML, right? Like there's more than 1,000 AI and ML models that come built into XSIAM, and you could do threat hunting in XSIAM today. But for some of the more advanced use cases and capabilities, very specific niche use cases that an individual customer might want, I'm pretty pleased that we've now opened up the data lake for customers to bring their own ML. That's awesome. Let's shift gears now and talk about the MITRE coverage dashboard. And so this essentially provides you visibility across the MITRE attack framework so that you can stop guessing about where you have coverage, where you might be protected or not against the latest threat vectors. And you can also visualize when different tactics and techniques are triggered with a particular incident. So Parker, again, let's take us through a demo.
Yeah, if you know me and you've heard me talk, you know I'm a big MITRE fan.
Absolutely.
So very excited to be able to showcase this. So we've had MITRE TTP coverage in Cortex for some time now, most notably exposed in our incidents view. But we wanted to take that powerful framework, that same language that everybody's using to talk about incidents, and expose two dimensions of looking at that data across your environment. So one is showcasing coverage across your protected surfaces. And the second is building an environment-wide view of all TTPs that have been observed. And what I love about this is that this isn't just limited to what our research team is building for you. We're exposing that too, which I'll show you in just a second. But every correlation rule or behavioral indicator in the system can be mapped to MITRE TTPs. So if your team is building custom detectors, you'll see that that data is represented in this board as well. Which is critical for the modern SOC moving forward. Just going to dive in here. I want to walk you through a couple of pieces. Up in the upper right-hand screen, we talked about surface coverage. As you can see, cloud, endpoints, identity, we're making sure that we actually have that surface covered. There are certain techniques that are only viable to be looking at if you have that surface covered. And then moving over to the left, this is kind of what traditionally everybody's looking at is what are the incidents that I've got? And that's one way to represent or utilize TTPs. Down below, this is where I get really excited talking about what we've done, is that for the tactics, you've got the tactic level visibility for incidents. As you can see, I've got defense evasion, I've got a critical, and I've got a couple of mediums here. And then down here, I've actually also got the coverage. So I've got one protection module over here for OS credential. I've got 2 protection modules and 22 detection rules. And I can actually click on that cell and really explore what is my coverage for these. And where we've got intellectual property around our modules, we're just going to tell you the count. But where we've got content that's available, like behavioral indicators of compromise or correlation rules, we're actually allowing you to pivot over to that data and see what coverage you've actually got for that individual technique. Now, I've also got a related incident here, and I can pivot over to that incident directly from the MITRE map. So if I want to come in and take a look at what's going on behaviorally in my environment, I've got credential dumping. Well, that's really interesting to me. Let's pivot over to that critical incident. Or I've got credential dumping coverage. What does that look like? So 2 different sides of the same coin. Very interesting for me as a MITRE attack guy.
Absolutely, hugely powerful. Hopefully with all of the time that we're saving these SecOps teams by being able to automatically resolve incidents and not have to deal with so many false positives, they can spend more time in the MITRE dashboard actually improving the security posture of their organizations. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, we've seen a lot, but we have one more thing to share with you here today. And this is a preview, and I'm super excited to give you a glimpse into what we're calling the Cortex Copilot. We expect this to be generally available in 2024, but we wanted to give you a sneak peek here today. So the Cortex Copilot introduces generative AI technology underpinned by LLMs, or large language models, into XSIAM. And it enables you to ask questions using natural language at the prompt, just like you would with ChatGPT. So the whole idea here is for the Cortex Copilot to assist your SecOps analysts in day-to-day tasks and really accelerate SOC operations by simplifying some of those common and time-consuming tasks that you perform in your SOC. Parker, this one's super exciting. We're getting a sneak peek here. Can you take us through it?
Yeah, I'm really excited. Sometimes, as an analyst, you don't know what the next step is. And being able to have a way to really bridge that gap is pretty interesting inside of the way that we work in a SOC. So
Absolutely, let's see
let me show you something here. So our goal with Copilot is to give you an efficient workflow to interact with data in XSIAM. As you can see, we start by getting an overview with the last 24 hours. And we can also slide this out if we want to work in this flow with a little bit more space, so let's do that. And as you can see, we have historical queries. We've got suggestions on how to get started with Copilot. And then something I want you to keep in mind while I go through an incident is that often Copilots are pitched as benefiting beginners. And I'd like to show how expert users can benefit. Often subject matter experts dive too deep when the answer is right before them. So show me an overview of the incidents in my organization. Well, there's a couple of incidents that happened in the last 24 hours. Here's the top incidents. Okay, so next up, tell me about the riskiest incident. So let's pull that in. Next up, we can see there's a couple of interesting tidbits here about this incident. Maybe I want to pivot on user. So here I would take a look at Jeff Darcy. So here we've got Jeff. Of note, look, we've seen his user score go up 5% recently. He's got a number of incidents. He has only been active on a couple of devices, but he's got a couple of locations. So a couple of things that we could pivot on here. What I'm going to focus on next is let's take a look at the laptop. And here we can go ahead and see that there's been an incident on his laptop. And what we're doing for the senior analyst is that senior analysts a lot of times dive way too deep and do too much analysis and before they get to the conclusion. And here what we're doing is we're actually pulling out the core part of the causality chain, or what is the genealogy of attack. The process is responsible for the malicious activity, and we're calling out what are the behaviors we saw in that causality chain. So this is pretty new inside of Cortex XSIAM. We're calling out, we saw some malicious PowerShell, we saw some possible traveler. So kind of naturally the next thing that we would ask is, well, how do we remediate this? So show me playbooks to remediate this. And here, trust and validation are key. Historically with security, we've worried about false positives. Now with AI, we have to worry about false recommendations. With XSIAM, we're providing recommendations based on playbooks that exist in the system. And we're going to go ahead and allow analysts to take a look at those playbooks and even make changes to those playbooks before they execute them. And then even when we go ahead and find a playbook that we want to go ahead and execute to remediate the incident. Once we say run it, we're going to go ahead and say, are you sure you want to do this? So we're making the analyst have a two-step confirmation process because this is generated from Copilot. So coming in here, we've got OK. We're going to go ahead and click it, and the system's going to go ahead and start running that playbook to remediate the incident. Now, here's where I'd like to go ahead and call out that everything in Copilot has a built-in feedback mechanism. So you can go ahead and validate and have the trust over time that we're going to iterate and get better and better based on your feedback, what's going on in your system. With that, you can see how a Copilot can help focus an investigation and give convenient answers and next steps. What do you think about that, Matt?
That's awesome. Super, super cool. Obviously, it's going to continue to get better over time as the system learns and as we learn. I think that's hugely powerful, and I'm super, super excited to see the Copilot will become generally available for all customers in 2024, but it's available in preview mode right now for existing XSIAM customers in XSIAM 2.0.